The Israeli army has carried out air attacks in Gaza. Officials there say it was in response to a rocket fired from the Palestinian territory this weekend. Several explosions were reported earlier today. Israeli officials say the army struck what they're calling an underground complex that contained materials to manufacture rockets. There's been no word on any casualties. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams joins us now with more on this story from London. Holly, thank you for making time. I want to start with the latest on the ground there. What more do we know about these attacks?
Well, these are just the latest in an upsurge of violence in that region. Israeli troops killed a Palestinian man today during a raid in the West Bank, which set off clashes with gunmen. The militant group Hamas has claimed that the man is one of its members. This happened in the city of Nablus, which has been the focus of recent Israeli raids. Also in Gaza today, Israeli airstrikes hit what Israel called a Hamas rocket foundry. You just referred to it then. That's disputed by Palestinian sources who say it was in fact a banquet hall. Now, those strikes were retaliation for a rocket launched from Gaza on Saturday, which was shot down by Israel's Iron Dome interceptor. Following the Israeli airstrikes today, there were more rockets launched from Gaza. So this is really a ratcheting up of the tit-for-tat violence in that already troubled part of the world.
And Holly, we know thousands of Israelis are planning to strike today in sort of this final push to stop Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from overhauling the country's judicial system. So as I understand it, he's trying to fast track this new legislation. Can you explain why?
Well, look, a lot of the people on strike today are actually professionals. They're lawyers, they're medical workers, and they've been protesting outside the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. These are some of Israel's largest protests in recent years. The demonstrators are angry, as you said, about plans by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to radically overhaul the country's judicial system. Netanyahu says those reforms are needed to curb the power of activist judges and stop judicial corruption. And specifically, the reforms would weaken the ability of the Supreme Court to strike down laws made by the Knesset. Now, Netanyahu's critics say this is really about a government takeover of the courts and will actually foster corruption. Polls show that the reforms have very little support with the public, but Netanyahu has really made this the centrepiece of his legislative agenda. We should point out that he is currently on trial for corruption. Today, two bills that really embody those reforms are expected to pass committee and then be sent to the Knesset. These reforms are clearly very controversial and divisive. Israel's president warned on Sunday that the country is on the verge of constitutional collapse. And interestingly, President Joe Biden has actually weighed in on the issue, saying, quote, "The genius of American democracy and Israeli democracy is that they are both built on strong institutions, on checks and balances, and on an independent judiciary." That's been widely interpreted as criticism of Prime Minister Netanyahu and his reforms.
Okay, an evolving situation there. Lots to follow. Holly, thanks so much.